Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Milan Reports post-match discussion. My name is Ricardo, and today we have a little bit of a frustrating discussion as Milan tie Bologna 0-0, and there's going to be a lot of questions asked here. What does this mean for the Scudetto race? We dropped some points while Inter and Napoli gained some. Brina, how are you today?
Uh, a bit disappointed, but overall doing well. How about you?
Likewise, a little bit disappointed in the result. It seems like it's starting to write down its own story here that Milan is a maybe. I mean, the mentality, the play, a lot of things have to go ahead and change here, Sabrina, but we'll definitely go ahead and discuss here because definitely disappointing 0-0 at home against Bologna here. Your rivals and Napoli who are racing for the Scudetto, grabbing points this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we really saw the schedule and hoped that Napoli would be able to, drop some points. Inter would drop some points, especially the way Inter was coming into their game and Juventus was coming into their game. Thought for sure Inter would lose some points there. Despite the controversies, they didn't. I thought Atalanta might have something in the tank getting some players back. They didn't. And when both teams won, I thought, okay, this is just setting the stage for us bottling it. And that's what we did because I get it. We have trouble with the teams that, just pack the back and, try and close us down. But 33 shots, 7 on target, 9 corners, 36 crosses into the box. There's no excuse for us not scoring. There's absolutely no excuse. And
Exactly.
it could be one of the games that we look back on, match day 38, and say, that's why we didn't win the title. I mean, all is not lost. We're still 1 point ahead, but that's a very thin margin. And with us not being able to score, it's really worrying, seeing as confidence is going to be through the roof after winning the
Mhm.
Derby d'Italia. And even for Napoli, because they're usually the ones that kind of bottle it. No disrespect, but I think Napoli fans would agree when the pressure's on. A lot of the times they bottled it, and the pressure was on this weekend, and they had a very convincing 3-1 win. So Milan definitely really disappointing today.
Milan had about a couple of weeks here of a break, actually the whole Serie A, and with the expected return here, I mean, compared to the other fixtures, I thought we had a little bit of the easier one. I mean, you mentioned Inter had the Derby d'Italia and Napoli here. Atalanta, what we didn't expect there was the 3-1. So a little bit hungrier, and it looked like that in the first half. I mean, the chances were being created. I think Giroud had two opportunities in the box there with the header that, I mean, the goalkeeper for Bologna coming out huge, looking like prime goalkeeping there, making some outstanding saves. But yeah, you mentioned those stats there, and with the opportunities and the chances that we're creating there, 0-0 is very disappointing. I mean, you said it, looking back, match day 38, if we don't win the Scudetto, we look back at one of these games. It's not as heartbreaking as the Spezia game, but man, this is another game where, wow, dropped points, just like Salernitana. Wow, dropped points. And this one now brings us to 1 point margin with Napoli. We're only 1 point ahead of them, and Inter have a game in hand, but they're not too far behind. A lot of discussion here. I want to go ahead and thank everyone tuning in today, and we'll definitely go ahead and go on to player discussions here. But just before I go ahead and do that here, I'll go ahead and share what the Serie A standing look like at the moment. As you can see, Milan there at the top there played 31 matches, 67 points behind Napoli, right behind us with 1 point there, 1 point difference. Points having played 33 points there. We'll go ahead and it's tight. I mean, the days are coming to an end here. The Scudetto is in sight, but it's not a clear sight. We can definitely see that Napoli and Inter are racing along with us. And today, when the expectations for some of the players to go ahead and step up and shine, I think the disappointment to say the least, is what the overall theme was. I mean, personally, for me, some of the players that I expected to go ahead and shine today didn't, or even worse, they were falling a lot. I'm sure you saw that. What's up with Leao's boots there? He just kept on slipping and slipping.
And at first I thought, is it raining in Milano or something? And then I'm like, okay, none of the rest of the team slipping, none of the Bologna team is slipping, and just so many opportunities in attack, and he's slipping. It was, I think, one of his worst games this year. It was baffling because you could see he was trying and it just was not clicking. He just couldn't even stay upright. It was very disappointing given how lackluster the right side was as well. So to not get that clinicalness on the left side was really hurt us.
Definitely want to go ahead and jump into these player ratings as quickly as possible so we can go ahead and analyze each individual and a little bit of Pioli's tactics and substitutions there. I'll go ahead and share here the player ratings here, brought to you by our good friends Milan Report. All right. It's not showing my picture. There we go. Milan Reports, brought to you ratings here. As you can see, Pioli, 5.5. Our man of the match after discussion here. Ismail Benacer, although getting the substitution, 6.5. And then the rest of the squad, as you can see, no notable player stands out above 6.5. Benacer there just for the consistency and a little bit that leadership performance on and on again to continue to perform and be on top technical, especially coming out from the World Cup qualifiers here. But Sabrina, first glance at these ratings, what are your thoughts? Appropriate, accurately, fair? Anything that you want to go ahead and take a jab at right away?
But definitely very fair. It's just a shame that Tamori, Kululu, and Mignon won't typically get a lot of praise in a game like this because we didn't win. But all three of them were really solid. Mignon made a lot of quality saves, which kept us in the game because had he not made some of those saves, we would be even more disappointed than we are now. I thought Diaz had a much better game than he's had in the last few months, but unfortunately, it couldn't really amount to anything. He was making some good moves, getting around players, but then he was just being overwhelmed and had really no support. If he wanted support, he would have to go back, and that kind of defeats the purpose of trying to push forward for a goal. But his performance was really good. In midfield, I think Tonali, not as good of a game as we come to expect from him. Benacer was absolutely excellent. I was very shocked when Pioli took him off. I thought he would be taking off Tonali, but Benacer was great. He was pushing forward. He was dribbling past a lot of players as well. I thought he was excellent, and it was just disappointing on the wings. I mean, when Rebic came on, he definitely made a difference, but Macias and Leao were both very disappointing on the wings. Balls were being played in, but we couldn't get to them. So yeah, we were giving a lot of service, but it wasn't quality service. It was a lot of the time just going to Bologna players, and it was just a waste of possession. We're just giving up possession. So Macias definitely my flop of the match. He was just awful. And I mean, for Giroud, I mean, he could have taken matters into his own hands for sure, but not a lot of quality service. And even when he would try and lay the ball off to someone, if he was outnumbered, we saw one time he did that with Calabria. Calabria couldn't get it in there. It was just a whole lot of disappointment, and the attack just not adapting to the way that Bologna was playing. And I feel like a broken record because how many times have we said this in the past few months? And the last few results, even though there were 1-0 wins, it was the same problems that we were having. We were just lucky that one of them went in, but today it just wouldn't go in. And here we are sitting talking about a missed opportunity, 2 points missed out on because we couldn't adapt. And yes, Skrupski had a great game, but if we want to win the title, we can't sit here and think about that. We have to be the team that unlocks the defense and creates quality chances and finishes. And today we just couldn't do that.
And honestly, just like you mentioned, it kind of does suck to be here at this point to talk about, a nil-nil disappointing tie, losing points towards Scudetto. I know that we both rather be here celebrating a win 3 points. But, in terms of the attack, it looked like at the beginning there is when they were super energetic off the counter. It looked like when the ball was developing through the middle, when the ball would get to Macias or even Leao and Diaz, the players felt like they had a shot clock in basketball terms to go
Yeah.
ahead and quickly get to the box there and to go ahead and, try to get a goal. And at times, looked like most of the times actually our attacking players were outnumbered, at the beginning of the match there. Macias, flop of the match. I am going to go have to agree with you there. He was definitely an individual there who continued to lose possession. Definitely was getting frustrated seeing him receive a lot of the ball. And the end product is not like Leao's on the other side where he can go ahead and take on the player and even bring in the service. In terms of Giroud, it looked like Bologna were very compact down the middle. They were definitely trying to go ahead and do this low block defense and mostly stay in front of the box. So there might have not been a lot of space there for Giroud, but definitely, the hold up play and the distribution off the foot was definitely poor. And it's not what we used to go ahead and see him do throughout all of this season. Although he is a threat in the air and got a couple of those headers off, it's just lacking that clinical, just putting that one in the back of the net. And likewise for Ibrahimovic there towards the end of the game, a couple chances there and just being clinical. Um, no excuse, honestly, being away from Serie A football for so long. A couple of these players, actually a handful of this players not even getting the international call-up, definitely there during training.
Yeah.
But now, Osama here definitely mentioned the fact that, Leao has a lot of pressure. And sometimes as fans, we definitely go ahead and put a lot of pressure, especially during that time where Leao had that great shine, a couple of months where he was definitely a great baller. But Dirty Dav wants to go ahead and bring up the counterpoint that Leao has the same pressure as every other Milan player. Sabrina, I just wanted to see maybe were your thoughts here if Leao is getting a little bit of a heavier pressure from the fan base or out the
Well,
media, or is he getting
I
the same?
Yeah, I think when he really exploded this season that we were kind of expecting more of him, but it's been a few games now where I mean for a few games we were there saying are we Lao dependent?
Mhm.
And then after that there's a bit of a drop off. He was still doing well, he just wasn't scoring a lot of goals or whatever. So we haven't relied on him in a while, so I don't think he has more pressure than anyone else does. But today I'm sorry. I love the player. He is phenomenal. I love him. I'm not saying that he's useless, sell him, but in today's game, that for me was his worst game of the season. It just, even if we weren't holding him to such high standards, even like a lowered standard of okay, just provide service it wasn't there today. The not being able to stay upright, but also this decision making was poor too. He would try and take on a player, wouldn't
Mhm.
work out. He would try and a lot of them too were trying to do a dummy, and they just I think none of them were in sync today in the attack, which you say the opposite about the defense. You see Tamori and Kululu very much communicating and cleaning up each other's mistakes if they did make one. But in the attack, it wasn't like that. You saw with Diaz, with Giroud, with Leao, with all of them, they're trying so hard to do this dummy and do this quick movement, and it wasn't there. But of all of them, Leao had, aside from Macias, had a really, really poor game. So if you want to be a superstar, if you want to earn the big bucks, you have that pressure and you have to be able to stand it. And I don't know. I just think today it was not it wasn't even an average performance. It was really, really below average from him.
Well said then. We'll go ahead and just go ahead and dive into the rest of the team here. Start from the top here. We discussed a lot about Pioli's tactics and some of the substitutions that were made throughout the game. I know that you're not really happy about the Benacer substitution here. A rating of 5.5. Is this fair? Is this not fair, Sabrina?
Yeah, I think it is fair because a few of the decisions were baffling, like the Benacer one. It was good that he took off Macias for Rebic, so I'll give him credit for that. But I think, Calabria was struggling a bit, maybe that substitution of putting Florenzi on could have come a bit sooner. And then I just felt like having Ibrahimovic come on, it just wasn't really what we needed in this game. And I mean, you saw he had the header and he had that head injury as well, but just a bit from Pioli that I wasn't sure what he was trying to accomplish there. So I think 5.5 is accurate for him. And it was disappointing because today was his 100th match in charge of Milan. And Opta Paolo had tweeted that he's got the most points, average points per game of a Milan manager in the 3-point era. And I thought, okay, let's add another one. Let's make this a good one. But unfortunately, he just didn't have the usual tactical astuteness today that he has in the past. And it was a little bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that 5.5 is fairly rated because when it comes down to tactics, although it was a little bit rushed, a lot of the chances were there. I mean, the stats that you just mentioned previously to the player ratings just show that Pioli's system, it's little tweaks and little things that are missing, especially what was lacking today, being in sync together, especially in the final third.
Mhm.
And maybe I know we continue to push this ever since 2022 started, and it's that Scudetto mentality, that little hunger, that I want it more, a little bit more. And that looks like, in these games, although it's a little bit of a factor, makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference, especially only taking 1 point at home against a side like Bologna here. So 5.5, fairly rating. In terms of the substitutions, yeah, definitely would like to go ahead and see Florenzi come on a little bit sooner. I thought Calabria there getting a little bit on the tired legs. Very disappointed in that miss he had. I thought that was one of, if not the best chance he had. We didn't even get the corner out of the
I know.
deflection. It was kind of weird, but probably the best chance. Threw on goal. Thought he had enough time to go ahead and slot that in the back post, but man, it's that clinical. Even the chances are coming from Theo Hernandez and Calabria to go ahead and put us up there, and nothing. So definitely a
Yeah.
disappointing. With that, we'll go ahead and start with the chat with both of them getting a rating of 5.5. You think this is fairly rated for both of them here?
Yeah, because I think they were both pretty solid in defense, which is ultimately their position. But part of that position is to provide to the attack. And I just feel like today they didn't really do that. You saw Teo had a lot of good runs, but then just that final decision of whether to pass, whether to shoot, whether to take on the man just wasn't there. Which in the past was usually the opposite with him. He'd be contributing more to the offense than the defense. But pretty fair rating, 5.5 average for the performance he put in. And I think the same with Calabria. Like I get it, he's a fullback, but how many times was he in front of the net with chances like that? And yeah, deflection, this, that, but he should have had at least one. And that just we had he had that chance, I think it was in the last game as well, where he was one-on-one with the keeper. I think it was against Cagliari and couldn't put that away either. And it's like, listen, if you're gonna put yourself in those situations in front of the net, then you have to be clinical and score. If you don't think that's part of your game, then don't put yourself in that situation. Make that let somebody else occupy that space that can do that. So again, solid on defense, but really, really poor offensively.
Yeah, it looks like with Calabria here, as he continues to go ahead and try to improve in the offense aspect of his game, the growth is pretty small here. I mean, it's pretty poor here. His attacking output here, as I mentioned earlier, that miss he had was definitely the most disappointing part of the game for me. But Theo Hernandez, on the other hand, I would have liked to go ahead and maybe give him a little bit higher of a rating at 6 here. I think he continues to go ahead and find that balance between offense and defense. His trademark offense offensive runs to go ahead and dribble with the ball up continue to be there. They are a source of opportunity for our forwards when he's driving and then looking to put the ball in. And again, this year he looks like under Pioli, he's continued to go ahead and work on his defensive positioning and his defensive abilities and not necessarily always be caught up at the field. But I mean, sometimes on his runs when he does take the ball, do you feel like, he holds it on for a little bit too long? I know that sometimes you can see the hesitation that he doesn't want to shoot it with his right foot, or he doesn't want to take it on with his right foot, or he's just trying to go ahead and get the ball and win a foul. But there are times where it gets frustrating seeing Theo Hernandez take on for a little bit too long with the ball. Didn't really
Yeah.
feel like that today. I really was hoping the chances would come out from anywhere. How were you thinking on that, Sabrina?
Yeah, there's just a few times too, like, he got by so many players and he seemed that he was a bit overconfident, or maybe he was like not expecting to get past all those players. And then he was kind of like, oh, what do I do? And, he just pushed the ball a little bit too far ahead of him. And it was just an easy tackle for the Bologna player to make. And then a lot of the times you see that when he does something like that, then he gets really angry and he'll try and charge into the player or try and draw a foul when it's really not a foul. So just little decision making for him, and the maturity that once he overcomes that, he's going to be absolutely world class. But it's just one of those things where you can't just rely on one set of skills to get the
Mm.
job done every time, because not every team is the same. And he's been playing in the league now for some time. The opposing teams know how he is. They know what he does. So just one of those things where he needs to hone that decision making. And today just it was just a slightly off in the just the final decision.
Likewise, in their defense counterparts here, Tamori and Kalulu in the center back partnership, both getting a rating of 6. You mentioned that a performance like this, where they were definitely solid duo in sync, goes under the radar due to the fact that we did not grab the 3 points. Want to go ahead and elaborate a little bit more on that, Sabrina?
Yeah, I mean, you can't expect them to be perfect, but you see
Mhm.
that even when they did make the odd mistake, that they're so in sync with each other and they have such great communication that they're able to clean up after each other. One can kind of sweep back and take the ball and clean it up. So I think they were really solid because Bologna had quality chances. They weren't just sitting in their own half and not pushing towards the net. So Tamori and Kalulu did their job. They did it well. And if we did win, even if it was a 1-0 win, I think a lot more people would be saying, Tamori, Kalulu, they're a wall, they're amazing. And they were, but it's something that it's unfortunate for defenders that we don't really praise them in a game like that. But there's not one thing of their game today that I could criticize. They were absolutely solid, and their communication between them and Mignon is just phenomenal. So if we do, knock on wood, if we do end up going all the way and winning the Scudetto, I mean, like a huge kudos to those two, because for them, we've had, I think, our last 3 games were clean sheets. Might have been maybe 4. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but that's due to in large part to the two of them. Mignon, obviously, as well, but for them to, divert the shots, divert the pressure, and not give too many opportunities to the other team, I think they're going to play a huge role if we are victorious at the end of the season. So no complaints for me for Tamori or Kululu.
Likewise, no complaints for me from Tamori and Kalulu. Definitely like to go ahead and see the physicality and the players continue to go ahead and be stronger and be dominant in Serie A. Um, As we get closer to November, definitely want to go ahead and see how Tamori's journey with the England squad plays out, because we didn't really touch on this last time, Sabrina, but Tamori not getting the call up here for these England friendlies, uh, definitely a huge bummer. Definitely a lot of eyebrows were raised here. Mine were definitely like, what the heck? Because Tamori has been fantastic for Serie A and Milan. That I don't understand why he didn't get the call up over some of those, I guess, Premier League center backs. But another performance by him. I guess we'll go ahead and continue to see. But the Tamori journey, hopefully getting the call up for England for the World Cup, is something that I'll be definitely paying a close attention to, because the man's a beast, the man's a wall. And I know a team like that going into a big tournament need a player like Fikayo Tamori. I don't know. Not English, so I don't really know the thought process behind leaving a player like that or what the conversation is. But I definitely think he needs to call up. We'll go ahead and move on here with the rest of the players here. We mentioned a little bit of Diaz. Diaz comment here from, again, Dirty Dav here. Feel a little bit sorry for Diaz. He's had very little game time lately, and he put in the effort in today.
Yeah.
Definitely see the effort that he put in today, trying to be a little bit aggressive and drive with the ball, finding players out wide in Macias and Leao. But I'm going to have to agree with you there with the little game time he is been having. We've been having Kessie play the 10. I think we had Krunic play the 10 at one point. Diaz is trying to find that opportunity to go ahead and show Pioli. And today definitely would have been an awesome opportunity to show that, hey, the goals are not coming from somewhere. Let me go ahead and create these chances. Don't want to necessarily say he was poor. You could definitely see that he put the effort in. I'm going to agree. Rating of 6, I think it's a little bit fair.
Yeah, I agree. He was doing what he should do as a number 10, aside from, hopefully getting us a goal. But he was a lot better than he has been in the last few months. It's just that every time that he was there and looking for someone to lay the ball off to, nobody was there. And then he's trying to regroup, and then all of a sudden he has 1 player, 2 players, 3 players swarming around him. And it's like, okay, he's still trying to dribble, dance around with the ball to try and wait for some support. He didn't really get it. And then ultimately it's like, okay, he had to turn back, lay it off to Tonali, lay it off to Benacer, because it was like, okay, well, instead of losing the ball, just pass it back. But if you have your number 10 who's going to be speeding up there and trying to create a chance, you have to move with him. If not, what is the point? Because then all that forward movement is just a wash, because he's just going to have to pass it back anyway. So I do feel bad for him because he was really giving it his all. It's just I don't think he had the support today that he should have from his other attacking players.
Well said, exactly how I was thinking. Definitely didn't have the support. Leao, a little clumsy today, and Macias with an awful performance here. Definitely a flop. Definitely didn't have the support. And we discussed this earlier. Shot clock mentality, not having the numbers in attack, everything being so rushed. That was just at the beginning. Towards the end there, it definitely slowed down the tempo a little bit, and it was a little bit static. But man, it's just where are these opportunities going to go ahead and come from? And we look a lot at our number 10 position, and this season, Pioli, depending on the games, has put a little bit of the center defensive mid there to go ahead and suffice with the tactics that who you're going against. But today, a team like Bologna, who were looking to go ahead and be compact and sit back and just play off the counterattack, Milan just didn't find those chances, and those chances did not even come from Diaz, which is okay. I mean, I think looking at the next games, I don't want to look back at Bologna and say, wow, what a 3 points we missed here. Just got to go ahead and stay behind the team and give them the full support. We got to go ahead and keep pushing. There can't be any more points that we can drop here going forward. Yeah. But looking at the rest of the midfielder, Sandro Tonali with the rating of 6 and man of the match, Ismail Benacer, 6.5. The double pivot there. 6.5 fairly rating.
Yeah, because I think for Tonali, he wasn't a liability by any stretch of the imagination, but didn't really have the impact that I thought he would in a game like this, especially because Bologna was kind of trying to push us around. You thought this would be a game where Tonali would shine, but I thought of the two, Benacer was definitely better. He was everywhere. He was, getting around players. He was trying to move the ball forward. He was putting in shifts on defense. There was once when Calabria, I guess, was still up in attack, and he came back and was able to retrieve the ball for us. Like he had an excellent game. For Tonali, I think he was just average, and we hold him to a higher standard now because of what we've seen from him. So a bit disappointing in that way, but he didn't really make a lot of mistakes. It's just that we come to expect more from him than just average.
I mean, Benacer continues to go ahead and show his technical abilities on the field. He's definitely good at driving with the ball and distributing. He definitely is an important piece to our midfield. Likewise, Tonali is a very important piece to our midfield and in the future. Definitely quiet performance today, coming off of that disappointing World Cup qualifying playoff. But right now, I think just for Tonali, the rest of the season, focusing on, the Scudetto is a huge priority. And I think, it opens up, you won't have to go ahead and worry so much about the World Cup and all of that. But the Scudetto and the Coppa Italia for our double pivot midfield, Benacer and Tonali, I'm loving it. I definitely want to go ahead and be behind it at all times. Today was definitely one of those days where it was one off, but it's better than, throwing in the Kessie in there, especially towards this half of the season. I think we're coming to the end of the Kessie time as well, only coming on as a sub. just being behind them because, I mean, although they were a little bit quiet today, disappointed with Benacer coming off. Would like to go ahead and keep him on to expect some more, but these are just types of games where, you're not in sync, it's not clicking, and but there was nothing in the game that just made me go, oh, that was awful. That was just
Yeah.
pathetic, or just being frustrated or upset at them. It's just that, lack of tempo, creativity, and so on. It's that little factor that we talk about, we just can't grasp. And then with that being said, I'll just move over to our attackers here in Giroud, Leao, and Macias. Macias, we discussed already, flop of the match with the rating of 4.5. Fairly rated. We'll go ahead and skip the discussion on that, and then move over to Leao. We discussed a little bit, about his balance today, the shoes, what's going on there, why he was slipping so much. You even brought up that this could be one of his worst performances of the season. And we discussed a little bit on the pressure on him. So, guys, definitely go ahead and take a retune to that earlier. The pressure on Leao is huge, but definitely the pressure on all of the players is likewise. There's stick to be given to everyone. This isn't just on Leao's shoulders. This is not a team carried by Leao, so let's not be too hard, Any thoughts on Leao, Macias, Giroud? I know we discussed the attack a lot today. Just want to go ahead and see if you had any quick summaries on those three.
Yeah, with Leao, we know he has what it takes, so it's not really something that I'm too worried about. Everybody has their off days. Unfortunately, his came in one where we could have really used his creativity and his skill, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm just more worried in down the stretch these next 7 games of what our right wing is going to be like, because Macias had that awful performance, and the player who is our player, Salamakers, who we signed to a contract renewal, he wasn't even the option off the bench. So that just goes to show you that our lone player is our starting player, and our actual player isn't even doing well enough to come off the bench, that we have to put a left winger on the right side to try and make something happen there. So I that one I can't blame Pioli too much for, but it's just worrying because if ever our left side has an off day like today, can't rely on that right side at all. So I'll give Leao a pass, but the right side is just really what's troubling me, because Macias has just been he was just awful today. And so I don't think Salamakers would have been much of an improvement. So you're kind of scratching your head there going, what are we supposed to do from here? Unless Pioli decides to say, you know what, let's play Florenzi at the right wing. He's not really a defender by trade. He started as a midfielder. So that might be an option. I don't think he's going to do it. Doesn't seem like he really wanted to put Rebic in and have Leao on that right side, but I think he was just trying to throw something at the wall and see what stuck. But yeah, I mean, not going to blame Leao too much, even though he had an awful performance today. I know he'll get better. Macias, at this point, don't renew his loan. Don't redeem his loan. And Giroud, he was like an island out there. Definitely could have done better, especially for him. If you see that you're trying the dummy and it didn't work once, it didn't work twice, just stop doing it. Hold that ball, wait for someone to come. If not, force your way through. If you lose the ball, oh well. Or you could draw a penalty. So I think that was my biggest complaint about Giroud today. But of the attackers, Macias was definitely the worst.
We definitely go ahead and chit-chat all day about how poor the attackers were. And Macias is one that we're going to go ahead and take a look at, post-game after our reactions have a little bit cooled down there, review the game, look at all of the chances. But overall, these are the player ratings here. I'll go ahead and pop them up here again. Any final thoughts here on these ratings for Milan, Sabrina?
I don't know. I'd like to see Rebic get some more playing time. He struggled a bit when he came back from injury, but I thought he was really solid when he came on today. And he looked more dangerous than certainly Macias was. So I think if Pioli wants to just be bold, as much as you don't like playing players out of position, have Rebic and Leao playing at the same time. Leao seemed a bit uncomfortable on that right side when he switched him over, but I think Rebic has played on the right side for Croatia. So let's go into the next game having Leao on the left wing, having Rebic on the right wing, and see what happens because Macias kind of needs some consequence too. Like Salamakers wasn't doing well, he was benched. Macias needs the same kind of thing. Maybe it'll wake him up, but we have to go with the players that are showing the most. And Rebic is definitely showing more than Macias or Salamakers. So I'd like to see him get the start more. Ibrahimovic for me didn't make a difference when he came on. And as for Kessie, I mean, he wasn't a liability, but he also didn't really offer anything to me like in place of Benacer. I mean, he's definitely a downgrade on Benacer, but on his own, didn't really add anything to the game. So I think of the substitutes, Rebic had the biggest impact, and I think he should be rewarded with some more playing time.
Definitely have to go ahead and agree with you there. I would like to go ahead and see Rebic there be implemented on the right-hand side. Definitely after a performance today with Macias, don't want to go ahead and see him get the starting position anymore. Dirty Dav discussed maybe this could have been a game for Salamakers, could have done well in. You'll never know. I'm going to have to agree with you there. We would have never known. The right side was definitely poor as continued. We are going to discuss Rebic. I definitely want to go ahead and hear your thoughts. Let us know what your thoughts are if Rebic should go ahead and start on the right-hand side going forward. Some of these games, it's getting tight, guys. The Scudetto is getting near. We can't drop any more points. Sabrina, any final thoughts here on this discussion on the game against Bologna?
I mean, like you said before, it didn't hurt as much as other games, but I think the reason why this uniquely hurt is because before we were chasing Inter, now we had our fate in our own hands. So it's really as simple as do better than the other teams and the trophy's yours. So to see the other two teams that are coming for us win, and they were playing harder opposition, and for us to have been playing Bologna and just have that really disappointing performance really hurts a lot because then you start thinking, is this going to take its toll on the mentality of the team? Whereas the other two are now riding a high. And then you start getting depressed thinking, if we drop points again and they gain points, then we had the Scudetto in our hands and we let it slip away. So it's disappointing, but I hope that Pioli can kind of pull them out of that disappointing performance and get their heads in the game, and there's no more margin for error, because if Inter beats Bologna in their game in hand, that means they're also just 1 point behind us, and a 1 point margin is not good. And we know if we finish level with Inter, we have the head-to-head, but if we finish level with Napoli, they have the head-to-head. They don't have the head-to-head, but they would win out because of goal differential. Mm-hmm. So how awful would it be to be tied for first, and because we couldn't score because of a few poor results, we would lose the trophy. So it's in our hands. It's still in our hands. Very slim. We're just got fingertips on that trophy, but no more errors. And one of the team members has to take charge and kind of lead these guys forward, because it's just not what we want to see in this game going forward.
A disappointing result here, 0-0 tie against Bologna. Ladies and gentlemen, stay positive here. There's still a little bit of this race to go ahead and continue. We can't drop any more points to have to go ahead and stay behind our players and the staff. This is definitely one of those games that's one-off, but man, we've been having one-off games almost all season here. So,
yep.
Sabrina, thank you so much for joining here today. We definitely had a lot to discuss here on the game. Everyone, thank you so much for your thoughts and comments in the chat here. Definitely go ahead and tune into the next episode here for our next post-match discussion. What a weekend of Serie A it's been after being gone for a while. It feels like I haven't seen you in so long here.
I know.
So as we go ahead and continue forward, thank you everyone who tuned in today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.